Hi, I'm Sarah Bargijan of Sarah B Yoga, and welcome to my 10-part yoga class guide. So over the years, I have collated and tweaked a class guide that I send to all of my new students, whether they're coming to classes or workshops, in order to empower those people to know exactly what it is that I expect when they come to one of my classes. A lot of the points that I make are similar across the board with many yoga teachers. Some perhaps are a bit more unique to me. I'm going to talk you through the whole thing. If you want to have the entire yoga class guide, and it's a really nice sort of Canva display of a slideshow, have a look at the class description below and there's a link to it. So you can have it there to read and go through in more detail after this if you want. Yoga teachers, I think that this is a really good idea to send out to your students, giving your class boundaries, your class culture, anything that you want them to know, preempt any FAQs that often come up, and yeah, you'll find that your teaching role becomes much smoother and easier, and you can focus more on the teaching and the class at hand. So here we go. Before class, students, try not to have a full stomach when you come to class. Just have a very light meal if you need to. What I quite often do is I have about a quarter of the meal and then I save the rest of it for when I've finished teaching. Not only do you not want your body to not be in a digestive mode, you want to be able to really focus on yoga and feel light. It's also quite uncomfortable to do forward folds and poses where your stomach is sort of above the level of your head, like in downward facing dog, when your stomach is full. So have a light stomach, just eat a little snack if you're hungry. Another thing before class, your yoga mat. Now, it is well worth spending a bit of money on a yoga mat. And I'm only talking about maybe £50, 80 US dollars. People spend a lot of money on golf equipment, on tennis rackets, even running shoes. You're going to spend, I hope, a lot of time on your yoga mat. So make it one that holds your down dog in place, so it's nice and sticky, that it's a color that you like, that it's a thickness, about 5 millimeters is good, that will take away any pressure on your kneecaps when you're doing low lunges. I actually have a lot more to say about yoga mats, so if you're really interested in this and you're thinking of buying one, go to this video that I made a while back. It has a lot more details about yoga mats. What else? Don't be late. Try not to be late for your yoga class. If you've got a few minutes to spare, it's really nice that you can put your stuff in the room nicely. You feel like you've got time. You can walk slowly, literally across the room, find your space, listen to the introduction that your yoga teacher is giving you. So do buffer in, figure in enough time and travel time for you to arrive on time. I like my students to arrive about 5 minutes early. Also, another thing is establish, and you can say in your yoga class guide, if you're a teacher, whether it's okay for you that your class chats, that people chat and talk to each other before class. For me, it's absolutely fine. I love it. I actually encourage it. Most of the yoga friends that I've made during these before and after class chats are highly treasured people in my life. So do let people connect. If that's okay with you. There are some yoga studios that want students to come into the room and be very quiet, to give people the opportunity to just rest and disconnect from the chatter of the world. That's also nice. But for me, in my classes, I let them know in my yoga class guide that it's fine to talk. What to wear. So bear in mind when you're doing yoga that we do quite a lot of forward folds, and it's quite annoying if your t-shirt sort of bunches up over your face. So either wear a top that's quite tight fitting so that it stays in place, or that it's long enough that you can tuck it into either your shorts or your leggings. The bottom part of what you wear, don't wear running shorts. They're very short. And we do quite a lot of poses where the legs go out to the side. So women and men, please do wear shorts that tight, at least underneath your shorts, that are tight gripping at least halfway down the thigh. Yeah, that's nice. So what you wear. Also be aware that you might get cold. You might want to have a couple of other layers to hand on the side of your mat. It's especially when we start to do more slower and calming and cooling poses at the end. You might want to have something to hand to put on. Also, what to bring. A nice bottle of water, maybe some tea, it's quite nice, some herbal tea, and a towel or a blanket, something again that you can use to keep yourself warm when you lie down in Savasana. Even just a folded blanket to put over your thighs is really nice. It helps you relax. There's a lovely sort of compressing, kind of hugging feeling to it. And you might want to bring two, because one at the back of the head and around the back of the neck is nice too, and maybe even an eye pillow as well. Props. When I'm teaching and hiring out village halls, I quite often bring props. But I think it's great, especially if you're quite serious about your yoga practice, you realise that you like it, you want to continue, buy a yoga belt. D-rings are good. The longer the better. You can do more with a longer yoga belt. And also a foam block. They're light, they're easy to carry, very, very useful. You might even want to buy two. So do think about what props you might want to buy. And again, they're cheap. They're much cheaper than a skiing holiday. So do invest in good mats, good props. Avoid. A few things to avoid. Don't wear strong perfumes, even if they're lovely essential oils. Or you think that they're a lovely smell. The person next to you might not think so. So avoid strong perfumes. And also, if you've had a hard day at work, physical work perhaps, have a shower before you come to class for obvious reasons there as well. Moving on. One of the things that is quite important to me in particular, and I put this in my class guide, is I don't like people walking on my mat, and so I kind of presume that that's the same for everyone else. For many people, their yoga mat is quite a sacred place, a sacred space, and it deserves respect. You know, we go through a lot of trouble and strife, a lot of stories, a lot of emotions on our yoga mat, and for many people, it's theirs. They don't even like other people to practice on it. Also, just the fact that stepping on the mat with dirty feet just isn't very nice. So walk around other people's mats. Don't even step over them. Walk around them. Bags and belongings. Obviously, you're going to be bringing a few things into class, including your shoes. Leave them, for me, I like them to be left all on one side of the room and to be put really neatly and tidily, shoes next to each other, so that there's a nice feeling of order. This kind of goes along with the whole yoga ethos. There's order, there's space in between belongings of each person, so that you know that where your stuff is, that it's okay. Another thing very, very important to me is to turn the sound off with the mobile phone, and I actually remind people that at the beginning of every single class as well. I've forgotten a few times myself. It's easily forgotten, so a reminder there is really nice. If you're a teacher, do remind your students. Okay, the next one. Some yoga teachers don't like their students asking questions in class, particularly in vinyasa, where there's a continuous sort of melodious rhythm that can be broken with questions. That's totally understandable. For me, when I'm teaching a hatha class or a yin class, I encourage my students, if they want to ask a question, to wait for a respectful moment in between poses perhaps, to ask, and to really feel free to ask. In particular, if they don't hear what I've said, or they want me to clarify what I've said, or if they want me to offer them a different pose, or if they're in pain. So you decide as a teacher, if you're a teacher, what it is within your class that you find acceptable with students talking. I quite like the bit of banter, and I think also your attitude can reflect that. If you're a yoga teacher who maybe makes the odd joke, particularly at the beginning of class, maybe not so good towards the end, but that also kind of breaks the ice and people feel like they can respond a little bit more to you. But write it in your yoga class guide if you want, whether it's okay for people to talk and ask questions. Another thing that is important to me is that I tell my students, and I quite often remind them at the beginning of the class as well, but it's absolutely in the guide, is if they're feeling dizzy, if they're feeling tired, if they haven't slept well, they've had a hard day, it's okay at any point to take Savasana or child's pose. And quite often I will come round and I'll just ask them if they're okay, and then I'll leave them alone and let them know that they can come back in to join the class whenever they want. Some people, if they're feeling unwell, can go. It's absolutely fine. It doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. So resting is fine. Kind of in linked with that, in linked is a bad way of saying it, but a little bit similar to that is that I make it quite clear to my students in the class guide that I want them to do the sequence that I'm teaching. I have been to a couple of classes in my yoga life where students have not only done a completely different pose to the one that the teacher is teaching, but even minutes of different poses, even half the class, just a completely different practice. I don't like that. For me, that shows disrespect for a teacher, whether they're teaching yoga or history or maths or basketball. You do what the teacher is asking you to do. You can ask them for an alternative. You can let them know that you're injured and that particular pose doesn't work for them, and that teacher can give you an alternative, a modification for that pose. But do what the teacher is asking. If they want you to do a handstand at the wall and they're saying, everybody come to the wall, don't come into the middle of the room and do your own thing. Follow the teacher's guidance. Yes. What else? Shavasana. Sometimes, particularly I found in corporate classes at lunchtime where people are feeling sort of busy, people avoid Shavasana. I make it very clear in my classes that I want everyone to have made time to stay to the end of the class, completely to the end of the class. So Shavasana is really important, actually. It's a pose that we take not only to let the prana in the body, the energy in the body really assimilate and run through the body evenly. It's also an opportunity to practice the lost art of relaxation. Very often the only time that we relax is at that point before we go to sleep, and even that can be quite elusive to many of us. So if you do Shavasana, it actually helps you to rest the body, to rest the mind, which will help with sleep, but that's not the only reason. Just being able to rest and to soften around other people as well is something that can take a lot of practice, but once you've got it under your belt and you can do this, it's very empowering, and I think it's very healthy and very necessary in the busy, busy lives that we now lead. So buffer in enough time. You're staying for the whole class in my classes. You're doing Shavasana. It's very important. This is something that's probably you wouldn't expect me to say here, but it has come up a few times over my years in teaching, and it's important to me. It's led to quite a few issues, and that is, don't solicit business from other students. Sometimes when people come to yoga class, they have their own business, particularly if they're just beginning their own business, and they think that this might be an opportunity of like-minded people who may be interested in buying their wine, going to their chiropractic adjustments, or having massages with them, or whatever it might be. The business card can come out and a little talk can be given. I really make it clear that I don't want my students to be not harassed, but I don't want them to feel like they're being solicited for business. I just don't like it. I don't want it to happen in my classes, so I make it very clear from the get-go. Unless it's something that they think might genuinely benefit the students, but they have to come to me first and ask if it's okay. And that's whether it's in the car park before or after class, during class, or any time during the culture of my class. I didn't explain that very well. I hope you know what I meant. Okay, next thing, if you didn't, leave some comments in the box. I'd be very interested to hear what you think about that one, actually, especially yoga teachers, if you've had any of that happen before. Okay, moving on. If you're pregnant, let me know. This can be quite a heartbreaking situation. I have heard of students and even my own colleagues who have been to a strong yoga class and then the next day have lost a pregnancy. So I err very, very much on the side of caution. It's rare, it doesn't happen very often at all, but for me, if you're 12 weeks pregnant or earlier, I really don't think it's a good idea to do yoga at all. The little zygote, the little tiny embryo, is embedding itself in the uterine lining. It's still working its way in, it's still establishing its grip. And when we're doing yoga, we twist a lot, the organs move around, we bend, we stretch, we compress. So just go for lovely walks if you're in an early stage of pregnancy. Also, I would really prefer my students who are pregnant to go to a prenatal class. It would suit them better. It's easier for me to teach a class where everyone's on the same page. Having said that, I do have students who have been doing yoga for a long time, who know their bodies, perhaps it's even the second pregnancy or more, and they're absolutely fine. They're confident, their pregnancy is going well. They can come to my class, absolutely no problem at all. Also, do ask your students if they're pregnant, if it's okay for them, if it's okay for you to mention that they're pregnant. Some people don't want other people in the class to know. In particular, if it's a corporate class, they might not have told their boss or their colleagues yet. And another thing is, ask the pregnant person to come to class a few minutes early so that you can teach them, if you're a teacher, a few poses to do instead of belly down back bends and deep twists. So if you're pregnant, do let your teacher know. Please, please, please. Very important. A quick thing here, I'm not going to go about this very much because it's a bit boring for you here, but booking and payment, do pay your teacher. Don't make them have to email you to prompt you to pay. It's been quite hard for us, many businesses in the last year and a half, paying rent and big drop in students going online. It's been good for some people, not so good for most people. So do make sure that you pay. And teachers, make it very clear, and also make your cancellation policy very clear, not only to avoid confusion, but also I think if you do it in the written word, it's so much easier than having to explain it to a student in a class environment where you just want to think about yoga. So put it in your yoga class guide, whatever your cancellation policy or payment policy is. Okay, nearly finished. Communication. I think I touched on it a little bit earlier, but I really want my students to feel that they can talk to me. So I let them know that I am in class for a good 5 to 10 minutes, not more, after class for questions. And every class, someone comes up for a chat. And I love it because you quite often find out a few things about that student, what's going on in their life, how your yoga classes can help them. And also it gives people the chance to not feel like they have to leave the room immediately. So if you're still there with your mat still out, people will also talk to each other and get to know each other, which, as I said before, is I think really nice and really important. I also make it very clear to people that they can email me if they prefer to do it in a sort of more private setting. So yes, do encourage communication between the students to students, but also teacher to students as well. Do, as a student, make sure that you have a yoga teacher that you feel comfortable with, that you can approach, that is someone that you can ask questions to. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything. Again, please do feel free to look at the class description and click on the link where I can send you the full yoga class guide, whether you're a teacher or a yoga student. And I hope very much that this has helped, and I look forward very much to seeing you again soon. If you haven't already, please do subscribe and give me the thumbs up. I really appreciate that, and take care.